everyone, and welcome to my new tutorial series on lightsaber use. Presumably you have picked up an LED saber. I would like to show you how to use it. My approach to lightsaber use is a performance-based approach, based in flow arts, and as I will describe later in this tutorial series, as an approach to what one would call within the Star Wars canon, mnemon. Now the first move that we're going to need in order to pick up a coherent use of the lightsaber is the most basic, and that is a figure eight. Figure eight looks like this. Towards the camera, looks like this. And it's called a figure eight because if you notice my hand, if I take the lightsaber out of it, my hand is basically making a figure eight in the air in front of me. Okay, now a figure eight can be done all the way out at the end with a straightened arm where all the rotation is in your wrist. That looks like this. Very minimal elbow movement, all the rotation is in the wrist. It can be done where all the rotation is in the shoulder with what some people call large or wide orbits. That looks like this. The basic figure eight is somewhere in between. It requires a bent shoulder and it looks like this, or a bent elbow rather, and it looks like this. The reason that this version is preferable, the version that's all the way out at your wrist, gets to be hard on your wrist. It's also very hard to move with, and in order to accomplish this side, you actually have to kind of stretch your wrist at an odd angle. All right, the large orbit, you notice that your body has to make large adjustments to accomplish this. The mid-orbit, what we're doing is we're bringing the saber over to the other side of our body, so the saber is more or less pointed straight out in front of me the whole time. Okay, the mid-orbit is easiest to move with, it's most useful, and it looks best most of the time, but being able to switch between the extended orbit, the shoulder orbit, and the mid-orbit is useful for practice. All right, for the mid-orbit, what we're doing is we're allowing the saber to drop. This is called a downward wield or a downward figure eight. From a ready position, I allow the saber to drop just by releasing or loosening my grip. As I tighten my grip, I bring it back up. Now, if you want to practice this part all by itself, you can. Just like this, like one would twirl a cane. Okay, this one that happens behind my body is one half of the figure eight. The other half is over here in front of my body and it maintains a tighter grip and looks like this, all by itself. All right, so if you can do this and you can do this, you can do a figure eight. The crossover that exists in between, I have a loose grip, I allow it to fall, bring it back up, tighten my grip, move the saber over, and do that circle over here, loosen my grip, bring it over here. Okay, and the hand moves first, and the saber follows. Without the saber, this is what I'm doing. Tighten the grip, loosen the grip, tighten the grip, loosen the grip, in a figure eight pattern. All right, now that's the downward figure eight. To do it with the extended hand, I'm doing this, same movement, except it's all up here. With the shoulder, same thing. Same movement, but much larger figure eight. Happy medium is somewhere in the middle, but in order to get that, like I said, you can practice the extremes. Now that is the downward figure eight. I wanted to cover the upward figure eight as well. The upward figure eight is going to be a little bit harder for some people. Now that's because you're working against gravity in order to accomplish this. With the downward, you just let the saber fall. It does that all by itself. With the upward, I actually have to push it up. All right, so just like you would swirl a cane behind your back like this, you could also swirl it the other direction. Okay, and just like with the downward, where we would do this in front of our body, with the upward, we do it the other direction. Now it's called the upward because you notice that my blade is moving up when I do this. A good way to think about the upward, again, it's following your hand. I bring my hand over, the blade follows. I push my hand back, the blade follows. Bring it over, push it back. Bring it over, push it back. And you can exaggerate this movement if you like. I can exaggerate it all the way out into the full shoulder rotation, or I can minimize it. A little bit harder to minimize, but minimize it into the wrist area mostly. All right, so that's the figure 8, downward and upward. I suggest before you move on, you at least get comfortable with the figure 8. Bring it up to your wrist. Move it to the elbow. Move it to the shoulder. Bring it back to the elbow. Bring it back to the wrist. When you become comfortable with that, we'll be ready to move on. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and join me back for the next one.